I'm GA Solo. Hello. This video, wherever you may be watching, is the second installment or episode of a series of discussions I intend to have with different individuals regarding problems within communities. The first installment can already be found on my YouTube channel, Guardian Angel 1. Before proceeding, however, there are some content creators that I really want to recommend to anyone listening. If you enjoy any of my content or care about some of the things that I care about, then you will absolutely love and appreciate the work from these creators. First, there's the channel You're Triggered. Then there's the channel Julian Johnson Law, the channel Push Black, and finally the channel Grodynodi. I have decided to not give a description of what kind of content these individuals make, because I truly want people listening to this to go and see for themselves. I greatly respect and appreciate the work of these individuals, as well as the efforts and time that must go into it. Hello everyone. So today, as you can see, I am joined by three lovely ladies, and we are going to discuss something that I've been quite eager to speak about for a very long time now, a real preoccupation. In fact, this is a continuation of not only the series that I'm working on my channel, but also it's the beginning of a type of conversation that I'm thinking of having more regularly on issues with the Black community and suggestions, solutions, and all manners of things that we can bring to the table in order to solve the issues. When I say Black community, of course, I mean the international Black community, if we put it in such terms. So I would like everyone to introduce themselves. Maybe we can start with Tina, and then Serene, and then Miss Emma.
All right. So thank you so much. It's truly a blessing to be on this platform and also to be acknowledged for the work that each and every one of us do. So my name is Tina Farley. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California. Um, I've been living here in the United States my whole entire life. Also, uh, what started me to do this work because I have seen uh, on close up in person the systemic racism and systemic oppression towards our people. I have been in youth shelters. I grew up in the foster care system. I also been homeless on and off for 7 years. And from New York to California to here in Miami, I have noticed that there has been mainly Black people that are going through systemic oppression. And so I started more of this year just speaking the truth about the systemic oppression towards our people and, just trying to, feed our people knowledge of, to wake up and to really acknowledge that we are being attacked and there is a war on Black people um, all throughout the diaspora, not just here in America, but on the continent, also on different coasts, and so I've been trying to just shed light on that and showing that we are being attacked, we are in a war, and liberation for our people must be taken very serious. So that's just the work that I've been working on, and it's my life's work. I've truly found my purpose, and it's something that I'm really willing to fight for.
Well, thank you very much for that. I really do appreciate that. And by the way, everyone that I invited here, I respect their work very much, which is why I chose these specific people. They do very great work with everything. And I'll also put their links, of course, in the description for you to see. So, Serene, maybe you can introduce yourself.
Yes, peace. My name is Serene. I go by Serene Sovereign on most of my social medias. And I live in America. I have been Americanized, citizenship and all, but my background is African and Palestinian. So my father is Liberian, Ivorian, and Guinean, and my mother is Palestinian. And it's really hard for me to answer the question, where are you from? Because I've just been all over the place. I was born in Jerusalem, spent my childhood in Ivory Coast. That's where I was, grounded and raised. And then I came to the US for college. So why I do what I do is because I believe from a very, very early age, I've been able to notice the disparity, between communities that are Black, African, and other communities. Because I would, spend my year in Ivory Coast and then travel to Palestine for my summer vacation, stop somewhere in Europe. So from a very early age, noticing that, also having a very politically aware father, that's been a blessing for me, who's always made me aware of globalization in general, colonization, and how it affects the entire world. It's not just where I live, but always being able to connect the dots and see how things happening around the globe affect all of us. And it's just been following me my whole life. And even in times where I don't want to be political, I feel like I'm placed in these positions where I have to be political, because it's not a choice for us, right? We don't have the option to not be political. It completely affects our lives, whether Black and brown people. So that's how you found me. It was during a time where, even though my family in Palestine didn't want me to speak up because it's dangerous, it could endanger their lives if they find out that I'm linked to them and they locate them and they track me on these apps. But it was something that I really had to do, because this is a system that oppresses us all, when it comes to Zionism. And there were a lot of things that I wasn't seeing online. I was one of the first people online to bring up AIPAC, to bring up like the relationship with America and Israel, and that blew up, and every other content creator started doing it. And I was like, oof, I can ease off a little bit online and let the work continue. But every now and then I have to, come back and be that voice that bridges the gap and also speaks up on behalf of how this affects us as Black people. So that's where I'm at right now. And I'm very grateful that you brought me here so that we can keep this discussion going on of how not just white supremacy, but Zionism also affects us as a whole around the globe.
Thank you for that. And then Miss Emma, please introduce yourself and tell us your story.
Hello, everyone. So I'm Emma Ansah, and I am from West Africa, Ghana, but grew up in the suburbs of Montreal, Quebec. I am extremely passionate about anti-Black racism, because growing up in the suburbs of Quebec, as you can imagine, being the only Black family and going through very, very overt racism, I became very, very passionate and was always looking for, what can I do to expose, to find a way to work on eradicating? Because let's face it, we march, we loot, we do all of these things. And in the end, we're still going through it. I mean, I'm talking about living in the suburbs of Quebec in the 70s. We're in 2024, and there's no end to the discrimination and anti-Black racism and disparities that we go through as Black people. And as these wonderful sisters said, across the entire African diaspora and pretty much the entire globe, right? So I was fortunate to be offered an opportunity to be a contributor for the African Diaspora News Channel. They're headquartered in Houston, Texas. The owner and operator is Philip Scott. Shout out to Philip Scott. And his vision is so inspiring. And what we do as contributors on that channel is expose, the injustices with Black people, one story at a time. And so I'm so grateful to finally have found a platform to be able to expose it. And I cover primarily stories that go on in Canada, because I live here, but I also cover things that happen across the globe, because as we know, it's everywhere, right? So that's one of the things I'm very passionate about, as these other sisters have said, is that we will continue to expose anti-Black racism. I am an equal opportunity offender, from politicians to police officers to store owners to store employees, you name it. If the story comes to me, I'm reporting it and I'm exposing. Now, what I'm so passionate about is, how can we eradicate, right? So that's one of the things I always said to myself is, what can I do? Because as I said, we march, we loot, we do all these things and it goes nowhere. So I feel like, and I'm very passionate about exposing, because a lot of these companies and, police agencies and stuff, they don't want to be exposed. They don't want to be sued. The world now revolves around reviews and what people are saying about their business and what people are saying about, their companies, and getting into their pockets and having to pay, for whatever it is they're being sued for. So I'm very grateful to be on this channel as well, to have this discussion. I hope that we have more, and let's go.
Let's go.
Let's get it.
Absolutely. I suppose I would first want to start out before we go into the actual topics that I have prepared. Each of you, I want to know your opinion on what you particularly think is either the greatest or a few of the greatest problems that we have in particular in our communities, whether it be where you are at, or you can talk about other parts in the world. But as far as racialized Black people go, what do you think? Anyone can start.
I will start. I will say we as a people, we do a lot of supporting other nations, and that is something of the self-hate that we have towards each other and towards ourselves. We have set out to support everyone else, but we will not support our own Black owned businesses. And we have four essentials that we need, which is schools, banks, hospitals, and grocery stores. When you think about the amount of money that Black celebrities such as athletes and entertainers have had, and I'm not putting everything onto them, but I'm saying that these have been our examples. And if they're not supporting us as a people, we're going to look at it as we don't need to have any loyalty towards our own community. We're quick to, oh, I need to move up out of the hood. We're quick to say, you know what, I need to go marry outside of my race. You know what I'm saying? These are all things that are detriment and that are adding to the Black community of lack of togetherness, like supporting each other. There will be a Black owned business, and when you go there, they have been, I guess you could say, trampled by their own people too much, to the point where when you go in there to support them, you can tell their attitude, because they're so tired of people saying, oh, can I get this for free? Oh, can I have this? Can I have that? And these are such a problem, that our self-hate, it helps other nations elevate, you know, and we have worked so hard to be like other nations, like with our Black women wearing weaves, trillions of dollars to, the Koreans and to the Chinese, spending billions of dollars on Jordans and Nikes. We support so much Koreans and Europeans that when it's time for us to say, okay, now we need schools, now we need banks, now we need our own, independently owned, because we cannot be taking handouts from the government, because if we continue to basically be in this toxic, detrimental relationship with our oppressors, they're going to always shortchange us. We need to independently own our own businesses, our own schools, our own departments, our own infrastructure, our own distribution. But Black people all over have gotten used to this false white savior. This white savior is supposed to always come and rescue us out of our situation, out of our poverty, out of our systemic oppression, out of our self-hate, out of our lack of togetherness, lack of generational wealth. It's been said that Black people pass $0 to the next generation. And it's like, we need, and we're a $2.7 trillion people. So it's like we spend billions of dollars on weaves and Nikes. Why can't we pass this generational wealth to the next generation? And what's happening is we believe that we should be working for the white man and the white woman, or for the Arabs and for the Chinese. And even though subconsciously we don't mean to, what happens is it manifests itself of go to school, get a good job, because it all has derived from slavery, that you're supposed to be up under the white man and the white woman. And that's how you raise your children. We do not want them to be independent thinkers. We do not want them to be critical thinkers. We do not want them to even be competitors towards the white power structure. You're supposed to just be up under us. And that way and that type of thinking has destroyed us all as a people, because looking for the white savior in the Black community, we have put everything that we need, which is our essentials, we have put it into also supporting the Black church. The Black church has been one of the most, I mean, I can go on and on. I'm gonna be nice, but the Black church has caused a lot of detriment. Let me just keep it there. A lot of
Yeah.
detriment
Actually,
to
I
the
intend
Black
to speak a bit more
community.
about the. Yeah, I actually
um,
intend to speak a bit more about the Black church and spirituality and this
yes,
false delusions
yes,
a bit more in this conversation. But yeah,
yes, and that's why I didn't want to go too much into that, because I didn't want to take it away from the issues. The Black church is a huge issue, because if we didn't spend our time putting all of our wealth, um, and all of our time and all of our resources into a Black church, into any Black church across the globe, and we have absolutely nothing from it. You know, our children can't even go to the church and get jobs like they used to, you know. And I always say the Black church hasn't been great since 1968. You know, you used to be able to get jobs through the church, you used to be able to get housing. Today, they'll tell you, oh, we're just going to go in and pray. But when it comes to their issues, they want you to pay. You know what I'm saying? You're paying to
exactly.
put their children in the best schools, in the best homes. You know, they're pulling up in Maybachs and Lamborghinis and Maseratis, and you're taking the bus to get to the church, you know. And I've been there, and I said, man, you know what? I'm not gonna keep letting them mess with me. And then they will basically psychologically, it's a psychological reverse damage that they will do to you after you just get done supporting them. They'll say, oh, the reason why little Tay Tay and them is out on the streets is because, you know, they don't have nothing to do. And yeah, because we just gave all of our money to you. I could have put my kids in a house. I could have had my grandkids, you know what I'm saying? Like it, and then there's no such thing as wealth. And I think it's very interesting, because this ties into, uh, you know, the Black community. The Black community believes in God so much, and this is one of the things I always talk about on my channel too. Of we're so much into Christ, we're so much into the Bible, but the Bible tells us to build for the next generation and to build for the descendants, and not even to be religious. I'm just saying that's what the Bible says. But how come we're so religious, but at the end of the day, we're not passing any wealth to our children, to our grandchildren, to our great grandchildren? And every nation knows this. I have spoken to just about every nation, every tongue, and they say, well, how come you guys, all the money you guys get, how come you guys don't pass it to your generation? And so what happens is these nations that's coming over here, these immigrants and stuff, where we fail to capitalize within our own community, they're capitalizing on it. And they all say we must not go out like the American Negroes. They didn't want to come
Yeah.
together. They didn't want to put everything together. The Mexicans, you talk to one of them crazy, that's it. Chinese, you can't even go over there without them looking at you crazy. Arabs, so by us having hate towards ourselves, it helped everybody else come together to rise against
Yeah.
us.
Yeah. Well, you took the words right out of my mouth with all of those points. I would say, no, you really did. And it's a lot of valuable and important points. And I just want to, and we'll definitely get, I actually wanted to comment while you were speaking, but I want to hear what Serene and Emma, Miss Emma, have to say as well. So we can start with Serene.
Okay, so I think the biggest issue, and it ties into what Tina said, is the lack of knowledge of self and the lack of political awareness. And obviously, some of it, if not all of it, is very systemic because the system benefits from us not knowing who we are and what the system is fully doing to us. So for me, that's the problem I usually try to tackle in what I do is raise awareness about what's going on politically. And before, this whole genocide thing happened, I was mostly working on raising awareness on who we are as Black people. Like we have forgotten ourselves. We have been stripped from our history, our culture, even within Africa. Like Abidjan is the capital city of Ivory Coast, for example. It's hard to really get in touch with like traditional original culture because there's so much of the French influence from our colonizers. So even back home, there's such a disconnect from who we really are. And we have really bought into the lie that we are inferior and, on a subconscious level, which ties into what Tina says, that we support other people more than we support ourselves because of that inferiority complex. So I think the biggest issue for me, and also like the root of it all, is this lack of knowledge of self and lack of political awareness and how it's really killing us. And I really didn't even get in touch with all of this until I moved here and started connecting with, I guess you would call it the conscious Black community, but there's so many different groups. There are 5%ers, there's the Nation of Islam, the Hebrew Israelites, the Moorish Temple, like all of these different schools of thoughts, the Garveyites, the philosophies of Marcus Garvey. So these are the things that helped me awaken, but there's also a lot more that we just have to keep digging and reconnecting to fully understand what has happened to us and why we feel the way we do about ourselves and how that applies to the world. So that's where I would put mine.
Yep, that's actually interesting because that was exactly why I the first episode of the series that I'm working on, it was specifically about the inferiority complex. If people who want to watch that, because I believe also that is the start, the source of most of the issues that we see. If you really do consider yourself inferior, you're also going to pass it on to your kids. Even though your efforts to try to achieve something, you're probably going to believe that you cannot achieve it to begin with, and not even attempt. And it just leads to a whole state of apathy. And that apathy leads us to never enacting any changes. So thank you for that. And Miss Emma?
Yeah, I really can tag into what both sisters have said. Definitely, two words come to mind: slave mentality. We have Black people who still have this mentality in their mind. And as Sister Tina said, is, the white savior complex. That is one of the issues. What I will say from a Canadian standpoint, as far as the Black community goes, and what we as a community need to learn to stop doing and what we can do better, is on the stop side, is to stop, as Sister Tina said, pouring and investing into the other people's businesses and purchasing from them, and start to look to our community and putting our money into the community. In Canada, we have Black owned businesses, but we go to Chinatown, we go to Greektown, we'll go to wherever else to buy products where we have Black owned businesses who understand our products, who understand our skin and our hair and things like that. But we'll go somewhere else. What I will also say is the South Asian community here in Canada is blowing up. I mean, there isn't a business, gas station, Tim Hortons, Burger King, McDonald's, you name it, Quiznos, Subway. It's owned by the South Asian community, and they in turn hire their community.
Yeah.
They will live 25, 30 people in a 2-bedroom apartment and work. They'll take any and every job, $13 an hour, $12 an hour, $10 an hour, and they will work. And what they do is they work, they build, buy, they employ, and they have generational wealth. That is where we as a community are lacking. Because what we do, and I will speak for Canada, what we do here, not me, but what we do here is we will, um, work for the other people, date the other people, have children with the other people, and it's like white is right. So when we get to a certain level, that's where we're going instead of pouring into our community. And what we do is we will compete because it's so difficult to get where we go, especially in corporate Canada, for example. If they get to a CEO or a CFO or a VP position, first thing is marrying a white. Second is they're not helping their brother and sister come along either. So they're like, I worked so hard to get here, I'm not willing to share. So there's a competitive nature that happens as well. So instead of us saying to each other, hey, I have this strength, I've got this talent, you have this strength, you've got this talent. Let's pool together and build something. And let's get some more of our community with their other strengths. And let's build, let's buy, let's build. So we have to adapt that same model that other communities are doing, because there's a Greek town, there's a Chinatown, there's, like I said, there's Little India, and they all understand the assignment. And I'm not giving them props. This is just something that basic business 101 that we should all be doing. So I feel like what we as a community need to start working on and changing is that slave mentality. That's the first thing. And then saying to ourselves, we need to start building as a community, because I've seen so many Black-owned businesses that tank over and over and over again because of the fact that they refuse to build together, they refuse to share, they want to compete, and you're not getting that support from Canada. Like, Canada's not going to support.
No.
Right across the board, in the arts, for example, singers like Drake and The Weeknd and you name it, they all had to leave here. Deborah Cox, Glenn Lewis, I can go on and on. They don't support Black people. We have to do it for ourselves. So when they close the door on us, go buy the building. But you first have to get that mentality out of your mind and say to yourself, I am just as formidable. And how can we as a community do it?
Amen.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for that, actually. And like I said,
Yes, I see.
yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, like, I really say it again that you really took the words out of my mouth, because I was what you've just described, for example, with the Southeast Asian community in the United States, but also I would actually like to mention that even the Italian communities back in during Jim Crow, unfortunately, and in the 1950s, as well as the Jewish communities and the Polish, most of the immigrants that came in all had the same protocol, basically, that you've just described with what's happening today. And the reason I know that is because I'm actually a part of such a community here in South Africa as well. You see, I've lived most of my life as an immigrant as well, and we came in, very young. And when we came in with just a few families at first. We were just a few families of Congolese people, and most of us didn't know each other, but we initially came in united as with the church, the church, the little church that we formed and everything. And it was very interesting because everything that you just described is what we did. Our parents, because I was a kid, and most of when my parents came, most of us were kids at the time, or kids or teenagers. And the way that we were raised was with the mentality that when we grow up, we all go into different things that will generate generational wealth. So it's a very interesting, because I know that it sounds like a dream, like a utopia, like, wow, like there must be some sort of course we have problems, but when it comes to wealth, we actually generated that. And the interesting thing is that we did not start out that way. We actually started out with very little. But some of the tactics the strategies that we use are what you all actually mentioned. Firstly, we kept to ourselves. So everything that we did, whether it was the jobs and everything, we all brought it back to either our parents or to older people or our guardians. That's all that we did. Even when I came to the States, the first $1,000 that I had made and everything, sent it directly back to my I think it was my father. And then the second thousand that I made dollars, I sent it to my sister. Because it was because she had helped me with something and I wanted to pay her back. So that was the thing. But what I'm saying here is that it's not even something that we had to think about. And that's probably something maybe foreign to many people who have not had the sense of community. But I am telling you the honest truth. It's not something that you think about. It's literally just something that comes out of instinct. Like you get somewhere, the first thing that you do is to either send money back or to ask what we need, basically. And usually you get calls from your family back at home saying, oh, well, how's it going and stuff? Could you, send something back? Or will you be able to do this and that? That's literally how it goes. And no one complains because that's what we've seen has worked. So another strategy that we've done, besides the money thing, is also what we've gone into in terms of academics and professions. So the idea of being a soccer star or a basketball star or a singer or a rapper, we our parents, the way that not just mine, but even everyone I know in my community has that the way we were brought up, those were not options. Like literally, especially being immigrants, we had no choice. We were not going to go into all of that. So exactly. It's actually, yeah, exactly. um, it is really an immigrant mindset to kind of stick together because you have no choice. Especially in 2006, here in South Africa, there was a very big xenophobia problem here in South Africa, and that brought a lot of immigrant groups together a lot, especially Zimbabweans, Mozambicans, Congolese, Somalians, Nigerians. People started to form to be much tighter as immigrants because we were being targeted. And I remember that as well very well. And people who were here in South Africa who are watching will definitely remember 2006. It was a period of time. People got burnt. I remember one particular story of a Mozambican who was, I would say lynched, because that's literally what happened to him. They set him on fire and everything. And he didn't even do anything. But so that kind of sense of community was there. But also within the community, we were sent to certain professions that we had no choice. Our plans were literally made out for us by our parents from the start, and we benefited from that. Our plan was when you grow up, you go to university and you choose something that will generate wealth. So a lot of us now are doctors, a lot of us are engineers. Most of us are actually engineers in my Congolese community here. Some of us are accountants. Some of us have actually gone into business, and that's another thing. Some of them have gone into business and have brought in others who were unemployed in the community into their businesses. Others have had prominent positions in, well, it's not their business, but another business, like maybe in a high-ranking position, and they've been in a position to hire more people from their communities. What I'm describing to you is literally what every immigrant community has done, especially in the United States. You will find that Italians come in. One of them, manages to find some success by getting his restaurant started, maybe a pizza restaurant or something started, hires other Italians, Jewish people. One of them finds success. I don't want to say a stereotype of the banks, but that's usually what tends to happen. But basically, one of them, maybe in banking, he brings others of his community into the banking industry and they generate wealth. That's what we did here in South Africa. And I can tell you that it worked. I have to repeat this again and again and again. It's not something that we had to try to think about or figure out. It came naturally to us because of our survival. And I think if people understand that it can work, it's not just a non-Black thing. My point here is that it is not something that only applies to other groups. Africans, Black people, whatever you are, can do it just as well, and they do it. And it's not. I know that I'm speaking about my community because we're a Congolese community, but this applies to a lot of other communities I know of people that I know. And usually, you will never hear of us because one other thing that we had, a very important rule, is that none of us ever entered into any sort of crime, especially crimes against each other in the community. So I wanted to just mention that because to mention that there is a bright side to this, that it is 100%
possible. And I also just wanted to clarify that, by the way, this is when I speak about the community that I'm part of, it is my personal a small community of Congolese people. There are plenty of Congolese communities, right? So I'm not trying to say that all Congolese people have it good here and everything. No, no, no. I'm just saying that the Congolese community that we've formed as our groups. We live in different parts. Some of us are in Bloemfontein, Pretoria, Johannesburg, Cape Town, Durban, all of these cities. But we have a network of such things, and yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that in case anybody thinks that I'm trying
Listen,
to say Congolese people are.
any network,
Yeah.
no matter how big or small, just the idea that it exists is
Yes.
a positive thing. So
So that was something I wanted to mention, because one of the things that actually helped us was more in terms of keeping bad things out and supporting each other. That basically just worked. So yeah, sorry, I think I went on a ramble there, but basically, yeah.
I wanted to also add, just from listening to Sister Emma and then to you, Brother GA, um, what you was, explaining. I know that for a fact that was able to happen and be complete, because when I was in New York, it a lot of it was African people, African Latino. They were teaching me about my hair. They were teaching me about togetherness. They were teaching me about so much of how to save my money and do a lot of this. I noticed, and I definitely don't want to stereotype this, but these are from my personal experiences. And this is why I also feel, I also have become a Pan Africanist. Just recently, what is this? This is August. So recently, I'll say probably in May or so. But most Africans are usually coming from a family or a two-parent household. I'm not saying everyone, but I'm saying the most that I have seen. And because that you guys have this family first mentality of to help each other, bring each other from this part to here, help each other. That's actually a system that has been broken and completely demolished here for American Africans. When you talked about the football player and the basketball, I feel we don't even need that no more, because that has been the white oppressors' tools to tear us down by taking lives basically from black people. Where we could have had engineers, electricians, plumbers, mechanics. They all spent their whole entire lives trying to become basketball players, to the point where once that dream is up, because it's a system anyways, now they're left out on the streets to be doing crime, and they become nuisance to their own communities. They become basically a problem to their own communities, where most black men, due to the systemic oppression of removing the fathers from the household, because they know if you come from a two-parent household, especially having the protector and, let's just be honest, the more critical thinker, like how you were saying, your father, we're not gonna be rappers, we're not gonna be football players, because they understand the skills that pay the bills is what you're going to be able to pass on to your children. Whereas white supremacy says, well, let's remove the fathers from the household, let's give the mother welfare, and let's have this hardship story. And it goes back again to let's swoop in and become a white savior to them as well. And as you can see, that is a huge power problem in our community, because that foundation, that solid foundation of family, has been stripped from the black community of, a two-parent household, healthy marriages between a black man and a black woman, to be able to sustain a healthy life in teaching our black children. When you look at from the 40s to the 80s, we as black people, we're in a worse condition today than we was in the 50s, because even in the 50s we had our own schools, our own banks, our own communities. Today we have nothing because we keep wanting to integrate. We keep wanting everyone else to fight for our problems. I think about something you said earlier, in the beginning, when you said that you started out your work because you've seen that, Europeans, because they're not African, and we can go. I would, man, they're not
Yeah.
African. You have to be this. You have to have the blood, the melanin to be African, okay? But because we live in a timing where we want acceptance over freedom as a people, I can see a bunch of Negropeans excited about white people calling themselves African and speaking up for us because we look for that. Okay, yeah, he understands me. The people that have put you in this oppression, they don't understand you, but they understand that if we strip your foundation from you, taking your fathers, have your mothers out here running around. Women back then used to teach. We used to teach our children. Now, today, when I'm in the households where there's just, the black mother or the black grandmother, there's really no teachings. You know what I'm saying? There's more about, oh, why'd you get your shoes dirty? And, oh, why your shirt looking like that? Or why your hair looking like that? It's critique. And so when black people go out, we only understand critique and not knowledge of thyself. Which brings me
Yeah.
to Sister Emma when she said we have this competitiveness towards each other. And that derives from slavery as well, where it was pretty much the step and fetcher syndrome. You know, oh, if you tell on this one, then we'll let you go out. We'll let you get your house and then you can go get your kids and stuff like that. So we have been preconditioned from slavery all the way up until now that only one Negro at a time can make it. Only one can be the biggest business owner. Only one can have this business. Only one can be the star. And the saddest thing is, you even see this amongst our athletes and our entertainers as well. They have a one Negro at a time mentality. Nilly Fuller, he said that the difference between a rich Negro and a poor Negro is one is rich and the other one is poor. Because the mentality, when you look at, they pass absolutely nothing to the black community. They pass absolutely nothing to, to their own children. And the other thing I would say what's starving our community is interracial.
Yeah.
Interracial.
Tina, just if I may, just because
I
I want to.
apologize.
No.
Yes, I apologize. We could go on that one on and on, but I would
Yeah.
definitely, to finish up, I would definitely say
Mhm.
interracial has been starving our community because it's the same thing as I need another nation to fulfill who I am, because like what Sister Serene said, of because I feel inferior and we have been taught that, this is why this rise of interracial it's an agenda. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that was mainly what I want to say.
Yeah.
Just piggybacking off.
To
Yeah.
Tina.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Okay. No, because I think the conversation around Black people in America is very important because African Americans are, it's not hard to admit, like African Americans influence the entire world. And the white man knows that. And I think that it was a very intentional goal to have that culture destroyed here because we were influencing movements all around the world since the 60s, 40s, actually the 20s, since Du Bois. So one factor that I feel like a lot of people don't mention, I know we always say slavery, we always say civil rights and integration, but the crack era in the 80s, I feel like that is one of the biggest blows. And, you know, of course, Black people knew how it happened, but only recently now there's evidence coming up of the CIA's involvement.
Yeah.
But when you look at even down to the 80s, the Black family was still intact.
Yeah.
It was still intact. We were still having these businesses. We were still having like community. There was this one show I watched on HBO. It's called The Corner. It's actually the prequel to the show The Wire. If you guys have watched it.
Okay.
And it literally follows the journey. It's a real story. It follows the journey of a real person in Baltimore from the crack era to the 90s. And they were showing these flashbacks, which honestly had me in tears, of how the community was before. And, you know, people knew their neighbors, people supported each other, they had their own businesses, they weren't really going out too much to try to integrate with white communities.
Yeah.
And of course, you had Black people migrating into suburbs, building their own communities there. And that's also how, you know, the white flight that turned it into the hood or whatever. But they have flashbacks of how he lived back then versus what happened when he got on crack, he got hooked, lost his job, his wife got on crack, got hooked, lost her job. And so I feel like that has created the template of what we see today, where economic, like where we fell down economically, but then you have to grow up seeing your father poor, your mother poor, and then the daughters. Well, let me start with the sons. You see your sons selling the crack to the community, and then the daughters looking up to these sons because they're the ones making the most money and wanting that as a partner. And it's just, I just feel like that's what has evolved into what we see today, where, okay, it's not as bad as the 90s where everybody was selling crack, but we still have that mindset of, yeah, if you want to make money, you have to be like that baller, either a rapper, a scammer, a criminal, an athlete. And then as a female, you have to aspire to be, you know, picked by that kind of man versus, you know, what we used to do back then, which was go to school. We took education very seriously, get educated, get degrees, stay within our community. So that is, I feel like, a factor that it's like kind of forgotten, but it's such a huge, it had such a huge impact. And then came hip hop to try to speak on it. And then they took that away from us too and turned it into, well, we saw how hip hop was able to influence the entire world.
Yeah.
How about we get these rappers to tell the world what we want them to sell.
Yeah.
And here we are today. So a lot of it is systemic, and that's why, like, a lot of time I give Black people grace for what they have gone through. And you know, it's not something that's easy to break out of. It's like whenever there are any type of accomplishments, cities being built, they get burned down over and over again, and then you just get hit with crack, which completely destroyed so many people's willpower.
Yeah. It's definitely true. And before you start, Sister Emma, I was actually affected by the crack era. You know, my mother, she ended up getting caught up in that lifestyle. You know, and it's actually 15 of us. Where I just lost one of my siblings, but she had 15 children, and she didn't get the opportunity to raise none of us. And just hearing her story, she came from a 2-parent household. But what was happening is every single day, you know, her father was working, which was my grandfather. He was able to get work, but then he'll just get fired for no reason. You know what I'm saying? Then, my grandmother, she passed away at a really young age, at 45, of an overdose because self-medicating. And with the CIA, they all knew, well, because we have put, Black people in one of the worst conditions, we could definitely see them, being able to do drugs. And of course, we would have never took it from white people, because at that time, and we didn't trust nothing white people did or say. So they got our own men. And unfortunately, most black men have to understand, American black men have to understand that they were a hand in this detriment towards the black community. And I know that it was systemically set up by white supremacy, but at the same time, we make our choices, and I feel like we should have stayed strong. And I guess I feel that way because I missed out on, a mother. I didn't get to see, what she would have been. As a mother, she's a good person. She's clean now, praise God. But I was affected big by that, and I have met other people as well. And that was one of the ways of, once we tear that whole system down, once we are able to, pretty much tear their foundation of love, because now you got black men and black women act like they don't even love each other at all. They attacked our love in the 70s, attacked the father, hit us with the crack, then hit us with the rap. And and now it's just like, now we're like infants, like a toddler. You ever seen toddlers when they're being neglected by one parent? They go to other people fiending for love. I see black people doing that. Like, I see it even out here. I see black people trying to fit in with the Mexicans, trying to fit in with the Cubans, trying to fit in with the Asians because of the neglect. So they're trying to find places to fit in,
Yeah, absolutely. Miss Emma, you wanted to say?
Yeah, what I wanted to say on a more positive note as well, just to tag into what you said, Brother GA, that your community, they understood the assignment. They were doing the work and building, which I'm so happy to hear. And I'm not suggesting that we can't. I am always crying from the rooftops that we are brilliant. And to Sister Serena's point, that's why they're always trying to take us out. Because if we continue down this road of mixing races, at the end of the day, we are always considered black. It doesn't matter if you're half white, half Jewish, half whatever. When you're walking down the street, you identify as a black person. If somebody has to identify you, it's black. And what's happening is they're not happy about it. So this is why they're trying to take us out, because we are brilliant. Think about everything that we do, golf, all of the things that they think. Beyonce with the country music, they're like, what do you mean? And she's topping the charts, and they're like, no, we can't have that. So there is a fear and an insecurity on their side. We are brilliant. This is why I say we are very capable of doing it. The other thing that we struggle with is lack of self-respect, because we'll be out here calling each other the N-word. And then we have a problem when the other people call us the N-word. But if we're not respecting each other, how are they going to? And so there are all these moving parts, the drug addiction and everything else. We talk about them demolishing our neighborhoods. There's an area in Canada called Africville. And in the 1800s, the early 1800s to the late 1960s, there was a black community that was here in Canada. They came from slavery, and they were in this area that they called Africville. They were not receiving running water. No, they had no access to food, to anything. They wouldn't even pick up their garbage. So it looked like just a slum. But these black people still managed to build something for themselves and live a life that they were proud of. And what do you think happened? The white folks were like, I'm not happy with this. They're supposed to be suffering. So they came and they bulldozed the whole neighborhood. They literally packed them on garbage trucks and drove them out. They had nowhere to go. So my point is that we are capable. And so, Brother GA, you just proved that. And this is why I shout from the rooftops. When I'm reporting about stuff, I'm like, we can do what we're complaining about. We just have to get this right. And it starts there.
Absolutely. No, that's actually a very messed up situation you just described. Africa, I'm going to actually look into that, because that sounds a lot like
Yeah, it's in
Yep.
Nova Scotia. And there were many, many Black people that, came through slavery and settled there, and they were just refused to give them any sense of humanity. Similar to what's happened in the United States, where they just burned it down when they,
Yeah.
like Black Wall Street came, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
the
with
same,
Tulsa,
it's the
Oklahoma.
same,
1921, Tulsa,
same thing.
Oklahoma.
It existed here. There's been slavery here for over 200 years. We have KKK. We have everything here in Canada. But
Mm.
what Black people did was we were like, okay, you're not going to give us instruments. We're going to build our own. You're not going to let us compete. You're not going to let us fight in the war. They found something else to do. They pulled their talent elsewhere. So we are capable. They are very insecure about this.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's actually the one of the points about the inferiority complex that I wish I spoke about a bit more in my video, where because I grew up in a certain way, that's actually is what led me to have even more compassion for people who did not, who are also Black, because the way that I grew up, I understood, and that's also why I don't really pay much attention, to be honest. And this is maybe something that you may notice, but I honestly don't pay that much attention to what white people have to say about Black people. I really don't. I don't care too much, to be honest, because firstly, I've been surrounded by that most of my life. I think even as you have, Miss Emma. But what you just said about the insecurities is exactly why I don't take it seriously, because in reality what ends up happening is they kind of know that. Okay, let me put it this way: when you have a superiority complex, okay, when you feel like there's someone who's not who's supposed to be inferior, so you already have the idea before you even met them. When you actually meet them and then you find that they're smarter than you, they outperform you in your classes, they outdo this and everything, it is the worst feeling in the world. It is the most insecure feeling that a person can have, because it's like just imagine it as an adult getting beaten by a child. An adult already assumes that the child is inferior or weaker or less intelligent. Now imagine if a child outperforms an adult. It's that kind of feeling. It's also the feeling. It's not just between the people of different racialized groups. It's between people of different demographics. Like, for example, sometimes men will feel very, very upset and have their ego hurt if they're beaten by a woman. People, any demographic that considers themselves better, they have an insecurity to kind of maintain that. So that's why I do not take it seriously, because I know that it's all just a farce. This whole idea of racial purity. So that's why I haven't. That's why my focus is actually on Black people, because I have not seen anything that we can get by trying to appeal to them. But the problem is that, unfortunately, Black people with an inferiority complex, because of their conditioning in the systems that they grew up with, do not understand that. They do not see it that way. They feel like they have to respond. They feel like they themselves do not believe themselves to be inferior, and that is a problem. And that problem is actually what I wanted to. I know that we're probably not going to be able to go into detail with it, but that is why one of the first talking points I wanted to actually focus on was on the relationships between men and women. The reason for that is because, well, we all got here through sex. So basically, if we the way that we come in, whoever comes in, the sexual relations that people have, especially in our communities, will affect the procreation that happens with us. If people are born outside through casual sex that was not planned, and then people are kept that way, that affects their upbringing. If people are brought up in a very abusive house, that affects their upbringing. If people are born into if Black people are born and then adopted by people of other groups like Asians or white people or whatever, that affects their upbringing. So that is why I found it very important to discuss these relations. But just briefly, I think that that these relations between men and women, I used to think that, like, okay, well, I don't really care about dating. I don't think that's so important. But I think that it's actually one of the most important issues that we can talk about now. Because right now, as it is, relations between men and women, I don't think are very good in the States, between Black men, black men and Black women. There are many issues. And I wanted to kind of just hear your thoughts, your general thoughts. I know that you've already given some in terms of the wanting to associate more with lighter skinned people. Well, when I say lighter skinned racial groups and stuff, like white people, Asians, Latinos, rather than their own. But what else can you maybe attribute to that? Because I personally believe that if where the child is born, the conditions they are born, that's pretty much the start of it. So yeah.
So I'll go first on this one, just to add on to the template that we have seen from the 80s till today. It really stems from being in survival mode, a lot of it, with how the economy is in America, with how it always is suppressing Black people economically. There's this mindset of, you have to not always marry rich, but it goes back to being attracted to that type of man. And it's very transactional. It's everything about relationships today are extremely transactional, where women are expecting, like a flight to Miami on their first dates. It's like, how is this even, where does community come in? Where does getting to know the person first come in? And it really stems from this survival mode that everybody is on. It's like, we need to get money ASAP. And it's like, we're bypassing real connection to just get to how can I latch onto something to survive? So I think that's one of the biggest issues today. It wasn't always like this, but that is what I'm predominantly seeing on social media today.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people now, especially with these dating apps and things like that, people are just looking for a hookup. A lot of times it's very much a lease society. There's no desire to really put in the work anymore, like to court the woman or court the man and have conversations. You just got people behind a keyboard saying everything, false pictures, and by the time you actually get out there, it's not even remotely the person that you have been communicating with.
Right.
A lot of people are being taken for tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars under this catfish thing. But even aside from that, as far as the mixing of races, again, I've already mentioned one scenario, which is, the Black man comes from a household where they grew up poor and dad wasn't around. And now they're going into the workforce. They're saying, that's not going to be my life. And I think if I do this, and I take this, route, then I have a better chance of being accepted, and my children will have a better chance because they're not all the way Black, and so that's kind of what is happening. And then there's this stigma that's attached to Black men. They're all horrible and they're all abusers, and they're all carrying all these STDs, and that's all they're spreading around with Black women, when in fact there are a lot of very good Black men and Black women. It's just a matter of taking the time, first of all, to get to know who it is that you're talking to, or you're involved, or you're interested in, and there's a lack of a desire to do that.
Yeah.
People just don't seem to want to put in the work anymore. I've been off the market for many, many years. I always say, if today or tomorrow I'm no longer in the market, I would not know how to navigate in this world, of, I would just get a pet, wait until the death angel comes, and leave this earth. That's kind of, I say this to my husband all the time. I'm like, I'm so done, but on a more serious note, I do think that there's a few moving parts. There's that mentality of, I need to go here because here is where I can prove myself worthy of being in this room and being in this space and being in this position. And they don't feel confident enough in themselves and what they have to offer, and that they're just as formidable. Even if they make it that way through hard work, there's still something inside that's like, I need to go here, because here, is where I will be able to completely, I was circling the vicinity of being successful and being accepted, but now I will land if I go here, and I think that's part of the problem. And it does come from being a product of your environment, like Sister Tina has talked about, Sister Serene has talked about. You came from a crack infested home and, abusive father and everything else. It's like, I don't want that. So if I go here, maybe it'll be different, so.
And it also goes back to the lack of knowledge of self, because a lot of us don't even realize we taught white people, like since from Egypt till even slavery. Like when I went to the African American Museum in DC, there was this whole section on how the Africans they brought here brought with them the knowledge of cultivation and farming and masonry and like construction, like all of these things came from us. And if we only understood
Everything, music, everything.
Yeah.
everything,
Are
so
the
we just
originator.
understood that we're just being stolen from. It's not that we don't
Yeah.
have it, we don't lack it. It's all here, and it's just being extracted to another
Yeah.
place. We just got to redo it
Exactly.
right.
That's why I
Yeah.
keep saying
Yeah.
we are the ones that have to let go of that mentality.
Exactly.
I
That's
wanted
fine.
to add to what Sister Serene and Emma was saying is like we are living in a world, uh, just to sum it up, of lack of accountability when it comes to the black man and the black woman. Uh, like most black men, even me being a young black woman trying to date young black men, they have gotten used to uh, women like, okay, what you can give me. Whereas me, I come with a whole nother conversation. Like I was talking with a guy and he was like, oh, I know that, you want me to take care of you. I said, no, what you gonna teach our children? Are you gonna teach them about their blackness? Are you gonna teach them about their hair? Are you gonna teach them about, Africa? Are you gonna, and when I say, he was just looking at me like, no one has ever asked me that. And then on top of that, he was dating outside of his race. He was dating white women. And I told him, I said, I was just letting him know no white woman cares about the well being of black people, let alone black men. She doesn't care about your well being. She only knows I am privileged, so I'm going to get what I can get, which has also caused us as black men, black women, we're not taking the time to nurture each other and speak into the hearts and souls of each other, because truly only a black man could be a protector of a black woman, and only a black woman can speak into the hearts and soul into a black man. And then when our black children see that, then they're able to be embodied by that ancestry, ancient African spirit that they're seeing within us. But if we're getting our teachings from white supremacy of how to love, like the interracial is more of being marketed. You know what I'm saying? Every movie, like even when I'm sitting here and I'm trying to find something to watch, there's a white woman on the cover of everything, because the person that is in charge of this world, that's his woman, and he doesn't mind marketing his woman, to black men, because it's like, I need to continue to remove the foundation. I don't want to see healthy black children, that I cannot manipulate. And I don't know if you ever been around children, black children that, have their mother and father in their life. You cannot manipulate them children. It is hard to manipulate them because they they have both of a masculine and a feminine teaching. They have a head of a Christ and the body of the man type of mentality. And so you be trying to, and you just cannot, because it's like, I have my father's teachings, I have my mother's teachings. And it's easier to manipulate a man who only has a feminine teaching. It's easy to manipulate a woman who only has a feminine teaching. You know what I'm saying? And reason why I say that, because I wasn't raised with my mother, but I was raised with my father. And what most things, because I had my father's teachings, uh, men cannot manipulate me. And so I said, if every black woman had a strong masculine figure, but not unhealthy, a healthy masculine figure in their life or a father figure, then we wouldn't have this pool of black men who don't know their self. They don't know their self because they didn't see that. And the vision, or the idols that they did see, or the examples that they did see, they always see black men going outside of their race with white women due to inferiority, due to lack of respect, like we say, and also due to, I want to fulfill my falsified fantasy of being a white man myself. And so I'm going to go and get with his woman, and she's never going to hold him accountable of being a black man, because the white woman doesn't truly need the black man. She wants to use him because she can exert power over the black man where she can't do it to the white man. And that's why once the fantasy is over, it's done. And so when we look at this of why can't black men and black women get along today in society, we're looking at the curse of self-hate that's helping other nations elevate and say, well, if I'm a Hispanic woman, I could get a black baby anytime. If I'm a white woman, I could get a black baby anytime. Because there's no accountability. And now we have this gene pool of black children who are growing up black, and they're like, and this is personally in my household of like the kids, my little cousins, I asked them, I said, y'all know y'all black, right? My little cousin goes, I thought we was Mexican, but when I'm in school, they know I'm black. And I'm like, where you black, brother? So
that's what I keep saying. It
doesn't
matter.
So,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You are going to be identified as a black person. They're not looking at you and saying, well, I think you're half white. No, they're not seeing that. They're seeing black.
To wrap up what I was saying on that, because I know interracial is a big thing. It's huge. I mean, oh my God. But I was saying mainly the reason why the white power structure does not want healthy black marriages, does not want healthy black men and black women, raising black children, because of that exact reason. If I get your children to mix up and they don't know what they are, then we are more acceptable, and they are more acceptable to being used. Meaning they can have biracial children picking cotton and convincing them, oh yeah, because you have white people
That you're
used to
better,
do this
yeah.
too. Yeah, white people used to do this too, so you'll be good because you are coming from a household where one doesn't want to take the accountability of being who they are, and the other one is overly privileged and don't care about who you are. We can benefit from this. And everything you watch, I mean, I was watching Family Guy last night, and I didn't even know Cleveland's not with his black wife anymore. I was like,
wait, what?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, if you see Family Guy, but I was just like,
snap.
yeah, that's what I said. I said, oh my God, they have, that's what they
Oh,
have
that's interesting.
in the
That
cartoons.
is, yeah. Sorry, I'm just a bit
Cartoons are
surprised by that because
biracial, interracial
yeah,
now.
I haven't actually, I don't watch Family Guy, but if I'm not mistaken, Cleveland is that black guy who was married to also a fully black woman.
He was married. He
Black
was married
family.
to a. He was married to an all black woman, and and of course the person that wrote the script, I believe, is Seth something. He's Jewish, and Jewish agenda. Not to speak bad about any Jewish, but Jewish's agenda is to show black people in the worst light as possible. Also, to wrap up, because I know I could go on, but
Yeah.
the black woman is seen as the villain in everything.
Yeah.
Even in this cartoon, and I brought it up pertaining to this, I hadn't watched Family Guy in a long time, but I just so happened to come across it. But they had it where she's the one who cheated with him with a white man, and I'm like, what? I
So
was like,
that's a bit
it is
disappointing because actually,
interesting.
yeah, because I saw this. The only reason I know of that that particular couple is because it's so rare. I haven't actually seen a fully black man with a fully black woman in either cartoons or movies in
Or
a healthy
movies, yeah.
relationship in such a long time that when I saw that, I kind of remembered that I think that's from Family Guy. And now you're telling me that they went and broke them up in a cartoon.
They broke
In the
them. They
cartoon.
That's
broke
very
them up
disappointing.
because it's the villain. It's
Oh,
the
well, anyway.
villainize the villainize the black woman. Because if we pay attention, just like what Sister Emma was saying, and also what Sister Serene was saying, if you pay attention throughout life, the black woman's creation has been able to be uh, the kryptonite to white supremacy. So we could go right here with music, right? In music,
Oh,
they had all
mhm.
these little white kids that was doing these dances and stuff, and they just thought they was the best thing ever. Then you had a black woman named Katherine Jackson came and said, "Well, I got 9 kids that can do that way better."
Yeah.
And you know what I'm saying? They thought that they had the best. They were the best at tennis. And then here we go, Venus and Serena. They thought they was the best at basketball. Then you had the Kobe Bryants. Then you have the, LeBron. And even though Tiger Woods didn't come, personally through a black woman, he came through the genetics of black people, and they thought they was the best at golf, and he came and just wiped them all out. Even so, I'm not a fan of Tiger Woods. I do respect what he did for the golf, uh, but even all of these athletes and entertainers, their mentality is if we make it, we got to marry white. You know what I'm saying? And
That's usually the go-to, yeah.
yeah, and
Yeah.
that is set by them because it's like we can't have another you. And if you notice, the next generation is never as
Isn't
good as
gonna
them
be black, yeah.
because they have washed down the genetics. White
Yeah.
people have studied
So,
genetics so much, so they washed down the
so
genetics.
yeah. So I did want to just clarify that I don't think that there's a particular Jewish conspiracy against any particular group or anything, but I do understand that there are certain people who would not want to see certain representation, especially of healthy relationships between black couples or black individuals in the community. Sometimes they would argue and say that they're just representing the reality of things, but I don't buy that for a second because there are plenty of unhealthy, dysfunctional relations between all of them. It's a masquerade, just like how the trad wife movement kind of tries to allude to a romanticized, not fictional idea of what the 1950s were like. Because someone else actually explained this quite well. It's actually because they're literally basing their idea of what the 1950s were looked like on what
Right.
people in the 1950s, yeah, or what people in the 1950s wanted to portray, that this is the ideal American modern white home, and so they think that that's actually what it was like. But that's actually that's kind of like saying that, oh, I'm going to base my ideas of New York on by watching Spider-Man. That's not the reality of things, but you think that that's New York, that's not. So you're basing it on a propaganda or media that was literally controlled. So I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that they're doing it just to portray reality, because that's not reality. There are plenty of healthy things. But yeah, I wanted to actually add on to two things that you mentioned. Firstly, with what Serene said about the fact that we taught them, that was actually the first thing that came to my mind. Was that when I was in the States, and this is just a story. It's not too deep, but it's a story that an anecdote that I experienced where I was basically put in a certain position, and the sister of the manager, nepotism. You guys have a serious nepotism problem over there in the States. Anyway, so
Oh, yeah.
the sister of
This is Canada.
the sister of. Oh, really? Yeah, because like the way that they just hired people like who were close to them, boyfriends and sisters and sons and whatever. I'm not sure if yeah. So the sister came to work and they immediately put her above me and everything. But the interesting thing is that I actually had to show her the ropes for how to do things, such as starting the irrigation system, working a computer. I did most of it. And fortunately, she was honest whenever she was asked, how did you erect the fence? Who came up with the idea to erect the fence or to work this machine? And she would say that I was the one who actually showed her. But I'm actually beginning to think in hindsight that she only mentioned that because I was actually present. So if she lied, I would be able to, counter it.
Yeah.
But that was just a thing because, and I didn't, and that's why it kind of, and I only mentioned that story because when I got back from the States, this whole DEI higher statement phrase from the right wing started to come up, and it started to irritate me so much because I'm thinking, when I was there, I know that there are other Black people who are fully competent, but they're not in the position of that they're put in. They're sometimes even teaching. And by the way, what I just explained is something that happened to my brother as well. He had to teach his own boss how to run certain programs in terms of JavaScript and C# and so on and so forth. And yet, when the company is looked at, they look at the boss. Not knowing that the boss actually learned from this. And I know that this happens throughout a lot of companies. People, the subordinates in the company goes and gives a good idea to their superior, and it's just eaten up. And then,
happens to
Serene,
me
I know
all
you
the
want to say something.
time. No, I was just gonna add on that I'm
created everything as
yeah.
Black. We have created everything. I was thinking about what Sister Serene said when I was doing the study on because I wanted to know. I'm like, I've heard white people, dwelled in the mountains, and I was learning that from African Methodist Church, AMB Church. So I looked it up, and a lot of European or Caucasians, they don't even want to be called Caucasian because that's part of the ICE trauma. They know, like, we don't want y'all going in our past. They can bring up ours, but they don't want theirs, And when they came out of those mountains, the Moors taught them how to bathe, how to clean themselves, how to walk. They wasn't even walking upright. You know what I'm saying? They had to teach them how to posture themselves, how to teach them how to eat, how to teach them how to use the restroom and properly clean themselves. And once they learned how to do all of that, then they slaughtered off the Moors, those that they did not mix with. Because the Moors made the mistake of mixing with them too, such as what's going on now, which is at the end is going to be a genetic variation, between blacks and whites, because whites is like, well, if the nature completely takes me out, I want to make sure you're taken out with us. And it goes back to the teachings of we teach them everything. Like, I could just think of on jobs that I've been on where, they'll use me to put a system together for them and then fire me. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that tends to happen a lot. And I also wanted to just add there with what you actually said at the beginning, with in terms of, well, I think it was Miss Emma and you, Tina, who mentioned the divestment of wealth in terms of what we invest into other groups. I just wanted to give you a figure that I think it was 2023. You can fact check me if I'm wrong, but 2023, the European Union, just the countries that are involved in the European Union, made over 22 billion euros, 22 billion with a B euros, from rejected visas, from just the rejected visa fees. So that means that somebody applies for a visa, and you know that there's a fee. Well, anybody who has traveled to a country where they require a visa, yes, you require a visa, and there's a fee that you need to pay for that visa. How do you make 22 billion euros out of just rejected? And the statistics showed that the majority of those fees, unfortunately, came from Africa, the African continent anyway, the sub-Saharan African countries. And that is just an example of the divestment of funds that could. The thing is, I sympathize with people. I myself am from a country where there is unimaginable suffering and the genocide and massacres happening, especially on our east side. And so I understand why people would want to flee. The only problem is that if we continue to leave, the problems will only get worse. That is the reality. We only have a few choices here, whereby if we continue to leave our communities to try to, just like what you're saying with the interracial, instead of saying that, well, I've made it, I'm going to take my community with me, the mentality is to, I've made it, I'm going to make sure that I never go back by myself. And they don't care. They don't even have, sometimes I'm surprised at the way they even treat their own families. But anyway, And so that figure just got me thinking about how much, if especially with the brain drain, and I've made a few parts of my series, especially when I was discussing intelligence and pygmies and so on, whereby my country particularly is actually experiencing a serious brain drain, whereby our most educated, our most wealthy individuals, our wealthiest individuals, tends to leave. And then what tends to happen is that they take their wealth and they take their education with them. As soon as a Congolese person has finished either high school or has gotten a degree from a Congolese university, their first instinct is to go to Europe or to Canada or to the United States. And I just wanted to add that towards what we were saying at the beginning. But all of this is to say that I know that today we didn't have a lot of we weren't able to go into specific ones, but that's why I actually want to make this more of maybe a regular thing or other discussions, because I see that there are some topics that we probably will need to take in one by one, because for example, when it does come to the divestment, I realize that that's not something that we can talk about in a bit of time. So, and it's a serious issue. Talking about the relations between men and women is definitely a big one that we didn't even begin to bring to surface. Other topics that I wanted to discuss today were interactions between members of the diaspora. So, it gets very disappointing when, you get there to the States, you're all happy. I'm in New York. There's the Lady Liberty over there. Then the first person that comes to you and greets you, and this happens unfortunately very often, a white person will come and greet you. They will be like very friendly, some of them. Then the next person, the African American or the Black American, comes to you as another Black person and tells you to go back to Africa because we don't like your accents and stuff. And that is such a disappointment, because what they don't realize, the Black Americans, is that we talk among ourselves as immigrants. When that happens to them, on our side over here, we hear how the differences, and unfortunately that causes divisions. So there's that issue. And then the other topic was also on it slipped my mind now, but apathy among us and so on. But unfortunately, we probably will not have the time to discuss all of that. But these are issues that I think are some of the fundamental ones that I would really like to touch on. So because we ran out of time today, hopefully in the future we'll continue. I would like to finish off by kind of giving you guys the last word on basically the question would be what you think people, at least from this conversation, or even just in what's in your mind nowadays, what you think Black people in particular should maybe focus on in their minds nowadays the most. What kind of message would you want them to kind of think about these days as it exists today? Perhaps we can start with Miss Emma. Mm-hmm.
So I think we've all touched on the things that we as a community need to, work on, if you will. And, I can just reiterate what I said in the beginning, which is we really need to work on our self-esteem, our self-worth. We need to get to a point where we know that we are capable and just as formidable and able and brilliant, frankly. We need to let go of the white savior, as Sister Tina said, the white savior sort of a mentality. I have 4 brothers and all 4 of them are not with Black women. So that's to tell you. It is a common thing. It is, and it came from a 2-parent household, 2-parent Ghanaian household with a father who worked very hard to make sure that our lives were not a life of long suffering, instilled integrity, self-esteem, all of the things that every household wants, right? We had. However, somehow they still found their way out and made their own decisions. And their decisions were, I need to go here, because they're all very smart, brilliant, successful men. They all went there. Okay. And then my husband is the antithesis of that. He came from a broken household, being adopted, going through all of the most horrible things that a person can go through, through abuse and different forms of abuse and stuff. And so he went the other direction. I'm actually the first Black woman he's been with in ages. So that's to tell you. And then to Sister Tina's point is, I pour into him, right? I wasn't looking for money and fame and all of the things. I poured into him. I showed him that, yes, a Black woman can love you through it, right? So I think that we as a community just need to get to that point where we know we are capable, we are formidable, we are able, and we need to stop looking for somebody else to give us a seat at the table, for somebody else to give us. They're not giving us a seat at the table, go buy the table. They're not giving us a way through the door, buy the building. And so it's that I think is a crucial piece of the pie.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And I would just,
Thank you.
just to piggyback off of Sister Emma, um, the the pouring into, each other, which are the things, which is the foundation from us. The black woman has stuck by the black man's side for over 400 years. She's just kind of tired of being the one where she'll give him everything and then he'll take everything he is and then give it to someone else. And so, and the reason why I said that, the integrity of black people, our integrity, our racial pride, and also our dignity as black people. We need to get back to the foundation of togetherness. We need to get back to the foundation of love. We need to get back to the foundation of race first. You know what I'm saying? Because we had that, I was looking at in the 80s, when I look at, my family, they wearing the dashikis and got the hats and they was proud to be black. And now you can't catch none of them celebrating Juneteenth at all. And I'm like, I used to celebrate Juneteenth back then. And so what I want black people to get to is having more racial pride, having integrity. Just like Brother GA said, why is it that there is a stigma that says when you are a successful black person, you need to go outside of your race? We never used to do that. We understood, just like Sister Serene said, in the 80s, 70s, 60s, 50s, 40s, 20s, even the 1900s, we understood the smarter you are, the greater you are, and stuff, you come back and you give it to your nation. Every other nation does the same. And so I will say the integrity of us, we need to stop doing everything for a dollar. We have that bad in the black community that we will sell each other out for nickels and a half a dime. Once we get back to our integrity and in our racial pride and our dignity as people, once we start there with the love, the togetherness, the purpose, the community, it's only then, as black people from all over from the diaspora, once we let go of stereotypes, once we let go of, we must purge our mentalities, hearts, and souls of white supremacy because it's a curse. We must purge that mental illness of racial inferiority. And once we purge all of that from our bodies and start to accept our ancestry spirit, our ancient African selves, and start coming together more, then the solution is we can start building because now we will be healthy enough to build. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I want the black community to get back to, having integrity. You know, having this of, no, I'm not going to do that because it goes against my race. Today, anybody can go against the race, and it shouldn't be like that. We should have more pride in saying, no, I'm not going to make this type of music because it goes against my race. No, I'm not going to make this type of content because it goes against my race. Once we start back there of, I'm not going to do this because it does not align with my race. It does not align with making sure that the children are safe and making sure that our women are loved. I'm not going to do it. And we used to be there. So now we need to get back to that integrity. So that's what I want black people. We need to get back to our racial integrity.
Yeah. I would just double down on, my initial point is let's fall back in love with education. Education is going to be our key, no matter which path we choose to take, whether that's through improving relationships, improving in business, improving our self-esteem, improving our pride and dignity. That's all going to go back to how much we really know about ourselves and how much we know we're capable of. And also just understanding the political climate that we're in. There's a reason why we are ignorant. Ignorance is not cute. We need to stop thinking ignorance is cute. A lot of people are really proud to be ignorant. And even we're at the point where we're making fun of each other for being smart and for being educated and for speaking properly. So my biggest thing will always be, and this applies to everyone, but especially, the Black community, we cannot afford to stay ignorant. We cannot afford to not be political and see what's happening, what's attacking us, and how to fight it. And most importantly, really connecting back to that dignity and pride that we're looking for. That can only happen with really knowing ourselves. So fall back in love with education. That's my biggest thing.
And fall back in love with yourself.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and intelligent.
Yeah.
I was thinking of Muhammad Ali. He said, in order to be intelligent, you got to have intel of yourself. And as Black people, since we had intel of ourselves, I think of a Marcus Garvey quote. He said, "Don't take the kinks out your hair, take it out of your mind."
Your mind.
Education, because we were educated. And another thing, Brother GA, I know we're running out of time. Yeah, so but that's mainly what I want to say, just to wrap up, is the education. Education is huge for us because we used to teach each other.
Yeah.
So that's
right. No, absolutely. So I really do appreciate the messages that you guys have had, and clearly this was not. We haven't even gotten to the deep stuff yet because there's just so many layers to all of these things. But I do hope that we will continue this conversation or have other conversations like it specific. Yeah. And to the viewers, perhaps I do intend to have a number of them here as a host, but perhaps in the future we may also have some on other channels such as Tina or Emma or perhaps even Serene one day. So that is the intention to continue because I personally am very much invested in this because I don't think we can really ignore these issues anymore. And also and also because there are so many things that are actually positive in terms of the solutions that we can bring to these things. It's really not just highlighting the problems and then leaving people to wonder. I think that there are very good contributions that we can make that can encourage people to also take action and to see that and to get out of this rut of apathy towards thinking that we'll always be in these problems. So I know that we have to finish off now, but I really do appreciate you guys being here. We've been able to organize it here. And to the viewers, thank you for watching. All of the descriptions, all the information will be in the description. All the information will be in the description. And I guess we will see you again next time. Thank you.
Bye. Have a nice
See
one.
you guys.